Hello, everyone. This is Dr. Foster, the success coach with MaximumChange.com. Welcome to my Facebook Live today. Today is January 14th, 2019. And I thought I'd come at you today and talk to you about the subject of leadership. You see, when I am coaching and mentoring my clients, a lot of times what I'm talking to them about, in essence, is leadership issues, especially if they have an organization that is of a certain size and have employees. And so I wanted to talk to you today about this issue of leadership. Now, what exactly is leadership? Well, I'm going to use my favorite author in the space of leadership, and this is Peter Nordhaus. Met the guy before. Actually, this is a signed copy of his book, and I like Peter Nordhaus. Don't always agree with everything he says, but I like his books. Leadership is a process whereby an individual influences a group or individuals to achieve a common goal. So leadership is influence to achieve goals, a common goal. Now, that is the essence of leadership that we're going to talk about. Now, leadership is different for different people at different times in history. And we can talk about leadership theory forever and ever, amen. But we're not going to get into the weeds on all of the nuances of the discussion of leadership. What I wanted to talk to you specifically about was the need to lead. Now, obviously, if we go by what Nordhaus says, that leadership is influence of others for a common goal, how do we do that? Well, there's many different ways we can do that. But before we can influence, we just have to be able to lead. And this is a struggle many times with small business owners, is not knowing how to lead, because many times we go from this small business where it's just you alone in a room with maybe your dogs laying at your feet, and then you end up in this organization that has employees and payroll and all the headaches. Oh my gosh. And so what are you doing about that? Well, here's what I've learned. When I work with clients, what I find is that many times they've abdicated their leadership to someone else in the organization. And the one theme that I talk to them often about is the need to reassert your authority as the leader. Now, many times this abdication causes problems that you didn't set out for, you didn't intend for them to happen. For example, maybe you have an employee that is belligerent, maybe you have an employee that is embezzling money, maybe, or stealing from the organization. Maybe you've asked an employee to do something and they refuse to do it. All of these things are abdication. Sorry, the microphone was over there. I didn't realize it. All these things are abdication of your role as a leader. And in order for you to influence people, you actually have to show up as the leader, and you have to be the leader from day one on through. Now, if you have been in this role where you abdicated leadership, you're going to have to take that leadership back. And so that can get kind of messy. And what ends up happening is, many times when you're going through this cultural change where you're taking back your leadership, sometimes people leave. And that's okay if they leave, because maybe they're going to cause problems. Now here's the issue. You don't want to be in a place where you're a small business and maybe you have 3 or 4 employees and they all leave, because then you're back to mom and pop status, and that isn't what you want to do. So what I tell people when you're in a leadership role is, when you're going to make changes, you have to make them small and incremental, because when you have other people involved, it upsets the apple cart like tremendously. You don't want to just walk in one day and say, okay, drop everything, this is how we're doing it. No, what you have to do is you have to slowly and incrementally change things, because what you're doing is you're having to adjust the culture back to where it needs to be, or recalibrate your culture back to where it needs to be. And part of that is you reasserting your authority as a leader. Now, I have a client, and this client is really, really good at what they do, and I'm a great advocate for what they do. And one of the things that they used to say to me was, but I don't like the leadership part of it. I want to go do X. I want to go do what I'm good at. I want to make widgets, and I want to do this and this and this. And I said, yes, but here's the problem. When you abdicate your leadership role, you don't know what's going on, and you lose control of the organization. And so you have to, if you're going to be called the leader, You have to stay as a leader in the organization. You can't just expect someone else to do it. Now, let me just say this. Perhaps you are really good at what you do, and you have gone out and you have purposefully hired someone to do the administrivia that you don't want to do. So let's say, for example, I'm a coach. I'm really good at coaching, and I work with clients, and I'm able to offer analogies and situations and recommendations that go right to the targeted heart of whatever we're talking about. But what I'm not good at maybe is sales. And so what I do is I go and I hire someone to do sales for me. But I'm constantly, this is where you cannot abdicate your role. I have to be in communication with my sales staff. I have to know what's going on. I have to be able to communicate to them when I'm making changes, when I'm thinking about something, when I want to adjust the way that I'm selling something or the way they're selling something. My role as leader, I'm the owner of Maximum Change Coaching and Consulting. I am the success coach, not Joe Smith, who is my sales guy, not Mary Sue, who's my bookkeeper, or so and so on. I'm in control, I'm in charge, and you have to be too. You have to be in charge of your company. You cannot bury your head under the proverbial sand mound, a mound of sand, and act like nothing else is going on because you're doing what you like to do. The reason we go into business, one, is because we want the freedom of owning our own business, but two, we're in business to provide a solution for someone. When you're a leader, part of your role in what you're good at is leading the company. Don't lead it from behind, you've got to lead it from the front. Be a leader worth following. Don't be scatterbrained or even worse, don't be a tyrant of a leader. I'm going to tell you a little story to give you an analogy for this. And this is a failure that I had in my life, and I had it quite young, and I learned a valuable lesson about leadership at a young age. I was probably 12 years old, and I was in the Boy Scouts, and I had been elected patrol leader of my little troop, in my troop. And so I had, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6 guys. Some of them were my good friends, and they had elected me as their leader. I was the leader. And so we were on this camping trip that I was the newly minted patrol leader, and I thought my stuff didn't stink, right? And I thought I had achieved this level because my friends had elevated me to leadership, and I was the leader. And so we had this event that we had to do, and it was like an obstacle course / relay race / you have to find things. And so we set out into the woods, and we had to go achieve a certain event. We had to finish it and go, and they give you, it's kind of like the Amazing Race. They gave you the next clue, and you had to go do that. And so you had to do all these things to finish up. Well, my desire was to win. I wanted to win. We were going to be the best patrol, and we were going to win. And my friends were like, hey, you're not cool anymore. We're supposed to just be having a good time. And I'm like, no, I want to win. And so what ended up happening was, long story short, there was tyranny in the ranks, and I was ceremoniously removed as patrol leader by these other guys. They basically got rid of me. But what I learned was this: I was not leading them. I was managing them and telling them what to do, and to the point where it wasn't even fun for them, and it certainly wasn't fun for me as a leader. And so really what I was good at, no longer was I good at it because I was tearing down my organization. And so years later, I took this idea of you have to take care of your people, and you have to lead them, and you have to show them that not only do you have this responsibility to lead your organization, but that you trust them and you value them and you want to encourage them and lift them up. So years later, I was a executive in a media company, and I was basically the operations manager. I ran, all the back office stuff, and I had 25 people that in some form or fashion reported to me, but I had a bookkeeper. And here's what I learned was, love this lady, and I miss her very much, because she's now in Washington, D.C., and I'm in Ohio, and we work together in Tennessee. But I used to say to her, she had such a servant's heart. She wanted to serve me as her leader. She wanted that so much. And you know what? I stole it from her all the time because of my desire to want to take care of my people. And here's what I mean by that. She used to come to me on a regular basis and say, "Can I get you anything?" I'm like, "No, get me the report or give me but she wanted to get me something like a cup of coffee, some water. And I used to say, no, because I'm not going to ask you to do something that I can do myself. But see, she wanted to serve me. She was a servant-hearted person. And so one day I was so busy. I had all these reports I had to do. I was getting ready for a presentation for our executive meeting. And she came in and I said, "You know what?" She asked me, "What do you want?" And can I get you anything? And I said, "You know what? Can you get me a cup of coffee?" You would have thought I hung the moon for her, because finally I allowed her to thrive in the space she so much desired to do. So as a leader, you have to recognize where are those spaces where your employees, where your followers thrive. And when I allowed her to do that for me, and trust me, I still to this day do not like to ask someone who is my employee to go get me a cup of coffee. Unless I'm desperate, I'm going to ask for that. But to this day, I even though I don't like to do that, I have to recognize what it is that makes a person come alive and thrive, and see how I influence someone to a common goal. As the leader, is recognizing where the giftedness is. You as a leader also, if you have employees, you have to be mindful of where they are gifted. What are they gifted in? What are they good at? You see, that's really leadership, is being in tune to your employees. You can't just walk through the office and go right to your office and sit down and act like the rest of the world doesn't exist because you are now getting to do what you're great at. No, as a leader, as a business owner, you actually have to engage in other things. You can't just be the grand poobah of widgets in your organization. You have to engage your followers. You have to be a leader worth following. See, I wasn't a leader worth following those years ago when I was 12 years old as a Boy Scout. And by the way, the rest of the story is I ended up becoming a great leader in the Boy Scouts and then beyond. And I was an Eagle Scout and so forth. And I was recognized by my peers as a good leader, which was a wonderful thing, because I learned such valuable lessons of how you take care of your people. You've got to listen to your people. Now, we're in the context of a 21st century workforce, and never before in the history of work have we seen such a grand shift in the way we engage our workers. In fact, I can remember when I was starting out in the business world in circa early 90s, 1990s, that is, back in the 20th century, I started in the business world, and you were expected to show up to work. You weren't allowed to work from home. You were expected to be in your seat by 8 a.m. And in some cases, I've worked places where you had to actually clock in on a time clock. And I'm going to tell you something. And it's not because now I own my own business, but the most demeaning, demoralizing thing I've ever had to do is clock in on a time clock. Because what it says is you're not trusted to do your work. Now, if you're not trusted, there's one of two problems here. One, you really can't be trusted, or two, the organization is hiring the wrong people, or they may be hiring the wrong people, and that's why they can't trust them. In the context of the 21st century workforce, in the 21st century work environment, never before have we seen this, but the shift is seismic, and we're seeing more and more people working from home, working from afar, what I call the distributed workforce. And we have to learn how to lead these people. How do you lead someone you don't ever see? Now, here's what I do, because I do have distributed workers. I use video camera like this camera that I'm talking to you through now, and this microphone. It's a really nice microphone, but you don't have to get anything as nice as a Yeti Blue mic. You can just get a cheap mic like the one I have on my shelf there that was like $10. But get a video camera. Most laptops and computers now come with a camera built in. Get a microphone. If you need to, get earbuds or headset. I have these great USB Raycon earphones, and they work great, and they're in stereo. But my point is this: you have to learn how to meet your employees in unique ways. Now, I meet with my distributed workforce through video conferencing. Sometimes I have to meet with them through my smartphone. When you meet with your employees, here's what it does. It says, I'm engaged with you, you're important, and what you say is important. How can I help you? And then, how can you help me to achieve the goals we've set out? A few days ago, I was talking about vision of your organization. Your employees have to be in line with your vision. And part of that is you meeting with them on a regular basis, especially if they're remote. Now, if you're like me, I hate meetings. So I'm not going to have a meeting that doesn't have purpose. For me, a meeting goes like this. Hey, Joe, how are you doing? What can I help you with this week? What are you struggling with? What are your challenges? What are your wins? And I work through, some basic 4 or 5 different questions. Do you have all the tools you need? What's missing? Do you have all the information you need? So when you lead, when you show your employees that you care, when you show your workforce that you care about them, then you become that leader that's worth following, and then you're able to influence them to the common goal. What is the common goal? I don't know. I don't know your business. But I assure you that if we were to work together, I would help you discover what those common goals are so that you can engage your employees. Leadership is kind of an afterthought for many people that are small business owners. You cannot look at leading your organization as an afterthought. Just because you're great at, this doesn't mean that you're great at leadership. Just because you started a multi-million-dollar company from nothing, from scratch, and built it to this great empire, doesn't mean you're a great leader. But it doesn't mean you don't have the potential to be a great leader. Now, here's the thing, and this kind of gets into the weeds a little bit on leadership theory, but years ago, in fact, this is kind of a 19th century idea that moved into the 20th century. There used to be this idea of great man theory. Now, I'm not meaning this to sound, masculine over feminine or anything like that, but the theory is called great man. You can say great woman if you want, I don't care. But the idea is that a great man, the person is born as a leader. Now, what I do know, after 25 years in the business world and studying quite intimately leadership and actually having degrees in leadership, a master's and a doctorate in leadership, what I know is this: leadership is very much and ever more a skill set. It's something that can be learned. Even you listening to me right now, you might say, I am not a leader. Well, the fact of the matter is, you're never going to be a leader with that thought process. You have to recognize that you are a leader. Now, you may not know how to be a leader, but you're a leader. Just by the essence of owning the organization, you are automatically and forevermore, amen, a leader. I will give you another example. You might say, well, I'm just a bookkeeper in my organization. I'm not a leader. I'm going to tell you right now, there is a point in the day, somewhere today or tomorrow or the next day and ever, amen, where you're going to do something that's considered to be a leader. Are you married? You're a leader. Do you have kids? You're leading them at some point. Do you go to church or synagogue or temple or mosque? And do you do something there? You might be a leader. My point is, when you engage in life, at some point you take on the mantle of leadership. Now, as a leader, let's say you own an organization and you actually are a leader of the organization. Guess what? You also become a follower. In fact, I would say to you that as a leader, you should find ways to be a follower in your organization. Now, here's what I mean by that. Remember that employee I was talking about earlier who was dying to get me a cup of coffee? When I allowed her to get me a cup of coffee, guess who was the leader? She was. Because she was doing something that she could do, that she had influence over, and I stepped back as the role of leader and followed and allowed her to do something for me. Many times in the business context, when you're running a business, you have to find moments where you can be a follower. Because when you follow, you better lead. What I mean by that is nobody wants to follow someone who leads terribly. In other words, remember my analogy of me as a 12-year-old Boy Scout dictating how things were going to be done. Chop, 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 let's go. March, hup, hup, hup. And I even had a whistle, by the way. Now that I look back on it, I cringe because I was blowing the whistle and I was trying to get him to march. You have to march. You have to get this done. You have to win. Are you a leader like that? Pounding the desk, screaming, carrying on? No, sometimes we have to step back as leaders and follow. Remember when I said that I do these video conferences and I talk to my employees? How can I help you? How can I serve you? Do you have all the tools you need? Do you have all the information you need? What is holding you back from being successful in your position? What is it you need? Now, sometimes there are things that they ask for that you just can't give. And this is where leadership really steps up, because you have to be honest with them. Maybe they're asking for more money and that's just not possible right now. So, there's some difficult moments. Don't be afraid of them asking for things you can't give them. What I'd be more afraid of is avoiding and just ignoring and giving lip service. I wouldn't lie to them. If someone came to me and they said, I want a raise, and I just wasn't able to give them that raise at that moment, I'd say, Sue, I know you want this raise, and quite frankly, you probably deserve it. And your analysis of your survey of your salary is not due for another 3 or 4 months, and we're just not in a position right now to extend that. But what I'd like to do is have a continuing conversation about this, and if we could check back with each other in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever it is, so that you've put them off, but you've not said no. Now, be careful with this, because I don't want you to not say no at the risk of punting a little bit further down the road again and say, come back in 6 weeks, and then another 6 weeks. I have been in situations where I've worked in organizations as an employee where the leader has promised something and not provided it. The most damage you can do as a leader is to make promises you're never, ever going to be able to come bring to light. I actually This is a good example. And this is all happening, years ago in my early stages of life. I had a company call me up. They found me somehow. I don't remember. And they said, you are perfect for our organization. Now, I was looking for a job, and I'm like, great. And I said, now we have to go through the formality of you coming in to meet with us, and you're going to have to do a formal interview. Well, formal interview meant I had to go in a suit with a tie, nice shoes and everything. And so this was going to be a great paying job. It was a great salary for my age and experience. And so I went out and I got fitted for a suit, new shoes, dropped $300 or $400 on all this stuff, and then I go to the interview, and they canceled it on me. And so the point is, someone promised me something, told me how great I was, told me that I was worth every penny that I was asking, and then they pulled the rug out from me. Now, I was $400 in the hole, and I needed a job. I really didn't have that $400 to spend on clothes and all the stuff I had to do, and it was just terrible. When you make a promise, you better be able to let that person cash it in, because when you make a promise, that is the integrity of your level of leadership. So all this to say, leadership is a skill. You can learn it. I mentor clients all the time in the space of leadership, and I ask hard questions. And here's the other thing. Not only do I ask hard questions, but I go to the heart of the issue, because here's what I've found with leaders, especially well-established leaders that have been around for a while. Maybe they're a CEO of a company with thousands of employees. What I found with these type of leaders is they become surrounded with people that I call yes men and yes women. They're people that tell the leader what they want to hear, not what they need to hear. And that's why me as a coach, it's so critical when I'm working with leaders that I become a sounding board, that I become accountability, and sometimes I'm a swift kick in the backside, because I say to them, why are you doing that? What are you getting out of that? Who advised you to do that? And yes, I talk to them that way sometimes, because they need a voice of reason in the midst of this cacophony of noise coming from all these jerks that are telling them what they want to hear. Let me tell you something. If you need your ego stroked, then you need to go somewhere else, because I'm not interested in stroking ego. What I'm interested is in meeting the vision, meeting the goals, empowering people to build the empire that I've set out to build, and try to do it in a serving, benevolent way, not as a tyrant. So if this is something that you might be interested in, go to my website, MaximumChange.com. The link is over here on the side, and I'd love to help you. Leadership, is a complex thing. That's why I have books and books and books on the subject of leadership. But the reality about leadership is it has to be experienced. It has to be done in real time. You can read all you want about leadership. You can become as heady as you want. You can get degrees and be, a doctor also. But the reality is, you have to do it. You can't think about it. You can't talk about it. You can't read it or write about it and not do it. You have to do it. So if there's anything I can do to help you to grow in your leadership style, maybe to speak into the way you lead, let me know, and I'd love to hear from you. I do have openings available for new clients, so you might want to check that out. Go to my website, MaximumChange.com, and look at my service offerings. And meanwhile, comment on this video. I'd love to hear from you. And if you are watching this video outside of Facebook Live, you can go to my Facebook page at facebook.com/TheSuccessCoachMC and get involved there. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Dr. Foster, the Success Coach with MaximumChange.com. Thank you so much for spending this 30 minutes with me as we discuss just a tiny, tiny sliver about leadership. Have a good day.